Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? This is Momo. Today it is my great honor to introduce to you this month's cover artist right here on Bass Musician Magazine. None other than the bass and thunder bass playing bottom kicker Rob van der Loo from the band Epica. Everything's good out there? Where are you right now?
I live in the Netherlands and I live in the city of Rotterdam.
Oh, Rotterdam. Yes, a classic city, a super musical city, as a matter of fact, that is responsible for some of the wildest music around the world, some of the new trends. Rotterdam music, when I was in the house music and all stuff, I remember these DJs and stuff that I was mixing for, they were saying, oh, no, it's got to be faster. It's got to be way faster. We're talking like 250 BPMs and climbing.
It's still a big scene. Of course, it's underground, and they called it underground back in those days as well, but let's be honest, it was huge. Productions like that, if they have like these big rave parties, we're talking about arenas filled with these people who were using certain substances.
Yeah.
The music was basically like the death metal of dance, I can tell you. It was crazy.
Let's talk about the band minute. So you've been part of Epica for a while. And for those of you out there who might not know this genre of music, I believe it's called like symphonic metal. How does one get into that particular kind of music? To me, it's very, very particular. It's mysterious. It's mystical. It reminds me of some like magical forest stuff with fairies, dwarfs, and dragons like thrown into the mix, wrapped up into some kind of rock stuff. Like, give us a perspective of how one gets into this kind of music and not a different kind of rock. I think it's different. Really cool.
Yes, it's really different. I remember back in like mid-90s, Orphanage, that's like one of the most underrated bands from Holland. I believe they were like one of the very first bands that had like this really almost doomy kind of metal with an female opera singer. To me, they were like one of the very first ones who are really like the pioneers of this genre. And then of course there's a band like With Implementation, and they're huge and they're still huge. Actually, the first time I saw them play, I wasn't really that much into that music because it was already weird to see like a metal band playing with this chick on vocals, wearing these huge dresses, sounding like Kate Bush. That's how I kind of describe them, like Kate Bush metal. And
that's funny, dude. Kate Bush. I love Kate Bush growing up, but you're right. I never even thought of that.
Like, what the hell is this, and what are these guys doing over here? Like, within 6 months, they already had a hit single with, I believe the song was called Ice Queen. It was like a huge hit, international hit, by the way. They started with small clubs, and before you know it, they were actually playing like Wembley Arena and stuff like that. So back in the late 90s, it was mostly called gothic metal, although I don't see what it has to do with a band like The Cure, for instance. But I guess it's more like the whole image around it, that people were wearing black clothing and corsets and blah, blah, blah. But musically, I always saw it more like, cinematic sounding metal with female voices and with this growling dude on guitar next to them. That was like the main formula for this kind of music. And like I said, I mean, the first time when I heard these bands play, also a band called After Forever, which is like Epica actually was formed after that band, because our guitar player used to play in that band. And I really had to get used to it because I wasn't really used to working with a female singer in a metal band. That was something completely new. And also the keyboards, the orchestra and everything. But I really learned how to appreciate this music. And I guess since I'm also like a big movie nerd and I really like soundtracks, I'm a big fan of, let's say, Danny Elfman, Hans Zimmer, guys like that. That's one of the main reasons, I guess, why I like the music so much, especially to compose it.
I did a whole lot of listening on this whole genre, on everything that you've ever done. And that's the first thing I noticed. It was like, damn, every one of these songs sounds like it's in a movie. And if you close your eyes, you can see the images. This doesn't happen with every kind of song, you know what I mean? That's out there, or the different genre. Sure, you can stick some of that poppy, teeny bopper stuff behind, these kind of weird little shows. When you're thinking of, like you said, the Hans Zimmer, the kind of glorious, expensive sounding movie soundtracks where they got an orchestra in Prague to drop all the tracks behind you and stuff, right? I got goosebumps just fucking thinking of that shit right now.
Yeah.
That is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. I want to send you something here. My question is, has anyone ever told you that you look like a Viking on bass? And I got my wife last night at 3:30 in the morning. She was crashing. I said, please, my buddy Rob van der Loo, I'm interviewing him. I got a question to him about looking like a Viking on bass. You need to turn him into a Viking right now. Can you see this picture right here? Look how fucking good you look holding your DINGWALL there. Come on. I'm going to put this in the edit, dude. I'm editing this fucking right into this edit right here. What do you think?
It's like you just like I've been playing in Game of Thrones or something like that.
Well, I mean, dude, I don't know. I've watched you play in your thunderous sound and the way you're just like on there. It's like you got all the, the characteristics of like some death metal stuff, but you're not. It's almost like there's a sophistication, a precision, and lots of glorious parts that are like ripping in and out. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I've watched you and the whole band, and I can see you guys on the end of a ship. I mean, I wish I was in a position to do your video, because I would do a 3D video with you guys all on the end of a Viking ship and your singer like sitting on the end right up at the tip of the ship like a Titanic thing, like doing all this shit there. I mean, it would just be great. And you on the top there, on the mast, kicking your dingwall way up high with the sails, right?
I'm going to use that picture on Instagram, man.
I know, dude. I'm telling you.
It's funny that you're mentioning that, because actually also there's actually a subgenre which is called Viking metal.
Okay.
It's a band called Amon Amarth. They're from Sweden. And one of the funniest things that ever happened to me was we were playing in Mexico City on a festival called Hell in Heaven. It's like a big metal festival over there. You could say that Epica's pretty big in Mexico, but all these bands were playing at hotels. So all these fans were gathering over there. And I remember coming out of the elevator to go to the lobby to go to a restaurant to have some lunch. And all these fans were waiting over there like, oh, I want your autograph, I want a picture, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, that happens. And all of a sudden I had to sign stuff. And he came with this big vinyl, which didn't say Epica, but it said Amon Amarth. And I was like, yeah, but guys, I'm not in this band. Yes, please, sign. I said, okay, whatever. So I was signing all these Amon Amarth posters and CDs and vinyl and whatever. And I was doing that for like at least 30 minutes, because it was like really packed over there. Instantly, when I went to go to the restaurant, the elevator opens again, and out of the elevator came like Johan, the singer from Amon Amarth, and he was standing there already with his Sharpies and everything to sign shit. People left because he thought that I was the singer.
Oh my goodness. This is hilarious. So that band, did you kind of look like that guy a bit in the thing, or is it because of the beard and the hair and it's that Viking shit, right?
Yeah, I guess so. He's even taller than I am. I mean, this guy is huge. I guess I do have to look for that band. It even happened at the airport where people always ask, because you're walking there with your instruments, and somebody had like a Slayer sticker on his flight case just because he's a fan. Oh, are you guys from Slayer? So yeah, we're from Slayer. Whatever.
That is amazing.
Kind of became like an inside joke. If people ask us like, from which band are you? Which band are you playing? We always say, yeah, we're from Slayer.
You know what? But you made those people happy, and you gave them this power at that moment. And you know what? We're all in the same business there, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So talk to me about the kind of live cinematic feeling you must get when you're playing this kind of music and see your audience, right? Them jumping like a religious experience. And this has nothing to do, in my opinion, with the typical rock and roll religion that we know, right? But this, like you said, it's like a live movie soundtrack. Describe to us that feeling with the wind in your Viking hair as you're hanging over the stage and your foot up on the monitor, kicking your dingwall, dripping out. What does that feel like, dude?
That's like one of the most ultimate feelings you can have as a musician, I guess. Especially with this kind of music, like you said, I mean, especially like the longer, more epic songs, they have like these long cinematic intros, and sometimes they burst into this like wild, aggressive riff, and everybody starts to freak out. And it's so cool to work to this momentum where everybody puts out their energy and becomes one big explosion. Everybody becomes one. That's like one of the most powerful feelings you can get. And it's even cool, especially at those festivals where you play, because sometimes there are these skeptical guys standing there with bands, you know, with a female singer that's not metal at all. But the cool thing is that at the end of the show, those guys are all in the pit. And that's one of the mightiest feelings you can have as a musician. And, you know, convincing other people who first think you're like one of these softy bands, and all of a sudden they become one of your biggest fans. They totally freak out to it. That's so cool.
Wow, dude. When it all happens at the same time and you feel the lock of the whole band and the sound and the parts are together, and you glim out at the audience and everybody's in sync watching you singing, it's like feeding you power in this kind of rotation. Wow. That's
something I've never witnessed before, especially with this band. I mean, it's just pure magic.
I was really pleasantly surprised when I went to search out for your solo project, something that you had done called Six Arms. Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you that really, I wasn't sure what to expect before I heard it. But when I heard it, I was completely impressed with every single thing I heard. And I said, damn, listen to this guy. Was that all bass?
Yeah, it was. It was all bass, and I also did some Chapman stick on it as well. But it was mostly bass, because that was back in the days when I mostly played 7 and even 9-string basses and stuff like that. Absolutely crazy. But the funny thing is about that EP is, because back in those days I used to play with Conklin bass guitars, and they once asked me to do some bass clinics and show people what you actually can do with a bass like that. I was like, okay, cool, but I really need some material for that to maybe, I don't necessarily want to show off, but to show people what you can actually do. Because the main cool thing, what I think about multi-string basses, is more not necessarily that you can really like shred on it. It doesn't necessarily add extra notes. To me, it adds like an extra color to your sound. The higher, thinner strings, they sound a little bit more like guitarish, but it can sound so cool on the bass. And from that perspective, I kind of approach it like baritone guitar, you could say.
Yeah.
That EP was almost like written and recorded at the same time. I did it with, actually the funny thing is, that was with the same producer, who is now also the producer for Epica. And he used to be, then he was back in college, he was just doing demos for small bands and everything. And he wasn't even a full-time professional musician.
That's fucking good. Dude, it sounds... Listen to me. I'm telling you, for all you guys out there who might have not known that Rob has done this kind of stuff, when you hear this, and you should go hear it, it's going to really show you the side of Rob that you might not have thought of, but you will confirm, because you will hear his sound and his approach in a different way than Epica, but like, again, with your staple kind of approach. It made me very happy, and I hope that you get to do something like that again. I'm a big fan of doing things with only bass. I've eliminated guitar players and shit for years now.
You're probably familiar with it. When you tell somebody that you play a 12-string bass, people start to laugh like, that's ridiculous, why 12 strings on a bass? But they always forget that it's basically a 4-string bass. Once you hit a string, or just like one note, it already kind of feels like a guitar, so you already change your way of playing.
Yeah.
I also like to do different things just from a creative point of view, that it triggers you to do something else.
Exactly. And I have a philosophy. It's a very interesting one. The more basses that you have hanging behind you at the same time means that you pick up an instrument, you go and do your shit. If it doesn't come out in the first take, don't sweat it. Put the bass back, pick up another one. That one's going to give it to you. You know how that works, right?
I totally agree.
For all of you guys out there who know what we mean, don't be afraid to keep adding basses to your arsenal. You didn't practice this week, no sweat. Just pick up another bass and you'll sound like you've been practicing all year, because that bass is going to give you what you're looking for.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Are you planning on doing some more of this amazing solo shit here? I know you're busy and stuff, but what's going on with that?
A lot of people are asking me like, oh, what are you doing during this lockdown? Because you can't do shit right now because there are no shows. But I've never been so productive than the last couple of months, because I'm constantly writing and trying out new stuff, my arrangement skills, or more like the classical stuff, working more on orchestral pieces. I'm also working with this cool dude that I was in college with. He's a great Hammond organ player.
Oh.
It's all instrumental music, and what he's doing right now is he used to be a little bit more into the 60s, 70s kind of stuff, a mixture of John Lord, Ghost, Jimmy Smith, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And what he's doing right now is a little bit more a mixture of 70s rock mixed with like 80s synth rock, and he's asking me to do all the arrangements, like the band arrangements, to make it sound a little bit more rock and roll. That's also a completely different way of approaching songwriting. I recently also was asked to join a few other projects. It's all new stuff. Some stuff I'd like to tell you about it, but I can't. That so sucks.
I'm going to let the surprise come out naturally in a good time. But what you're basically saying is that within this lockdown, you've got all kind of opportunities coming around. It's a time for us to build ourselves more than ever, invest into the increasing of ourselves and not so much in the panic of what is going on out there. This is the time for all us entertainment and musician people to get in and reinvent what is about to happen.
Exactly.
Here's an interesting thing for you. I want to talk about an incident that might have happened to you, but didn't, because you left a band called Delane. The headline reads, Delane bassist Odo, I can't pronounce that last name. That's a very Schmickel-Pennick or something like that. Suffers ruptured testicle on stage. Now, Rob, these could have been your balls that took a beating, but man, apparently you left the band and this dude got
right
hit
in time.
Got hit right in the thing. Is this guy a friend of yours? Tell us a little bit about this. Like, what's going on there?
I was already in Epica when that whole incident happened. And the funny thing is that, I really feel bad for Otto, because that must have been very painful for him. They had this big confetti cannon on stage, and Apparently, the guy who triggered that cannon didn't see that Otto was standing over there. So it basically shot off his testicle while he was standing over there. And he finished the show while he was bleeding and all. And right after the show, he went to the hospital and he had surgery and whatever.
What?
Respect for him for that. That's really hardcore, man. But now comes the funny part, is that the media in Holland picked up the story, because I believe they were in Britain, they were in the UK touring. The local news in Holland picked it up and they said like, oh, we're going to make a story out of it. You know, like a metal musician got his nuts shut off on stage, so they made the story out of it. But here comes the funny story, because when it came on TV, apparently they used my photo, because I was like the former bass player.
Oh, come on!
I was also on tour with Epica when it happened, and I remember I was sitting backstage, and all of a sudden I got a phone call from my mom. So I picked up the phone and I was like, hey, Mama, oh, how are you doing? How are you doing? She was totally in panic and everything. Then what's going on? Are you okay? Are you okay? I heard you're in the hospital. What do you mean I'm in the hospital? So I'm on tour with Epica. I'm just fine. Who told you I'm in the hospital? Yeah, but I heard the story about Delane and that your nuts were shut off. I said, Mom, I haven't been playing in Delane for 3 years. I've been in Epica for 2 years already. And she was, all of a sudden it was like silence. Yeah, so that was...
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we heard the continuing backstory, the true funny conclusion of what really happened. Oh my God, that must have been so funny. Your mother calling you up, I hear you got your nuts shut off.
So all these people on Facebook were asking me, oh, Rob, are you okay? Came to a moment that a friend of mine, actually, they used the picture that was used on the news, and they said like, dear people, my nuts are intact, but thanks for asking anyway. Feel bad for Otto, because that must have been so painful. And actually, he became a dad afterwards, so I'm happy for him that he came off pretty okay. I hope that never happens to me, man.
That's really good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to wish Otto the absolute best. We know that his testicles winded up working because he did have a kid, and that's what's really important. God bless his private parts, and that they're all right and everything, and that it's not our buddy Rob Vanderloo that got his nuts shot off. So I'm happy we can talk about this on the Bass Musician magazine interview. We don't always get to talk about testicles and nuts getting blown off on these interviews, and the fact that you're a Viking, we can talk about this in a very natural and cool way.
Yeah, we're doing it like a Spinal Tap 2.0.
Yeah, that's right. Tell me something, this whole symphonic metal clique of all these guys, Epica, Delane, Nightwish, like the whole bunch of these guys, do you guys like all know each other and hang out with each other and trip out with each other? You're all from the same town, or what's going on here?
Yeah, sometimes we even say this whole scene is like one big inbreed. I also work on a school called Metal Factory, which is like a heavy metal music academy.
Okay.
And we have also band members from Within Temptation working there. I work a lot with the guitar player. I also work on this video game music project with them. One of my former band members from around that Six Arms time, the drummer used to play in Within Temptation. Mark, the guitar player from Epica, he used to play in After Forever. The singer from After Forever, Floor, she's now the singer of Nightwish. And we all come from the same area. So to answer your question, even though they are all international bands and some of them are based in other countries, it's one big family, basically.
That's amazing. And so it all comes from your area, all these guys. It's almost as if you know, the roots and the plants of this Viking stuff has just like, it's growing there in your town. It's amazing.
Funny thing is that a lot of people, especially when we play in South America, a lot of people over there, you think like Holland is like one big like symphonic metal Valhalla, even though like metal doesn't mean a single thing in this country. Even though metal is pretty big, you don't hear shit about it on the radio, for instance. You maybe hear like the latest single Within Temptation because they're like one of those acknowledged pop bands, basically. You don't hear anything about it on TV or on the radio or whatever. But nevertheless, yeah, it's one big scene.
Times are changing. How are you adapting to the new way of doing things these days?
The way how I see it, or how we see it, is like that's also an opportunity. You just go with the flow. You just adapt. Probably the biggest mistake that many people made who are basically like from the 80s, 70s, and with that mentality is like you still think that they're going to make a living with selling records. No, it doesn't work that way. Of course, streaming can give you this extra source of income, but it's still like minimal. You have to be creative when it comes to merchandise, for instance. Everybody is into like selling t-shirts, buying t-shirts. Same goes for me. I still support a lot of bands. I always buy band t-shirts. I buy CDs. I buy vinyl. That's what it's about. People are starting to get a little bit more creative if it comes to the whole crowdfunding thing also. So, and people are starting to accept it. That's also a good thing.
The new system, like you say, is here. And like you, I have seen massive change before in the uprise and crashing of trends, especially in the music industry. The death of vinyl to CDs, the death of CDs to the MP3. I've also seen disco killing rock and DJs killing live entertainment in the clubs. And now we are watching the camera that is going to get completely killed by the smartphone. I personally think that this is an exciting moment because we have the opportunity, the real opportunity to reinvent a genre and a system that has been going for so long. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like this is possibly an exciting moment to be able to adopt like where it is we need to go?
Yeah, it is. Of course, sometimes it also can be a little bit scary because some people are also scared for change, of course. But at the same time, I also see opportunities. It's the same thing like what's going on right now. People in the industry expect to everything normalizes again. I mean, you know how it works normally when you are booked for a show. It's more like an agent or a booker. He rents venue, you're booked, you get your fee, you play your show, that's it. And now it's more going to be like, okay, well, we don't want to take that much risk anymore because things might go wrong. So basically, you're going to be paid depending on how many tickets you sell. Hey, whatever, I don't care. That means that we have to work extra and then we have to sell more tickets. I don't care if we have to go to a venue and we have to rent the venue ourselves because we've done that stuff before in the past. I'm not scared to do that. Do we have to say like, okay, then we're not going to work with a booker anymore? Screw that, then we're going to do it ourselves because we do have the fans and we can spread the word online ourselves. So why not?
That's true what you're saying, right? Because the whole promoter game is about to change when it comes to all these bands. So they're going to give you less guarantees. They're only going to pay according to what comes in, et cetera, and the forecasts are going to be completely different. This kind of reminds me of when all of a sudden, I don't know if you remember, CDs were at a certain price, $30, $35, $40, $50 for an import. And one day I woke up and all CDs went down to like 10 and $7. So with promoters and live venues, they're going to have to rewrite the whole thing for the live venues, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but even like we said, what happened to CDs, for instance, in the end, what happened is like most CD stores or music stores, they closed. But if you look at like the $50 that were made from selling a CD, how much money actually goes to the artist?
$1 if you're lucky.
If you like print CDs for yourself and you sell them online, for instance, and you ask less for it, still you'll make more money than actually selling it in the store. One of the smartest things you could do is actually have your own web store, sell everything from a central point that they also get scanned over there. Barcode people use a barcode, so they get scanned over there that you actually can come into the charts. If you sell like 1,000 CDs spread over like 100 countries, you still mean nothing. If you sell 1,000 CDs from one central point, let's say from Holland, then all of a sudden, it's quite a number these days to actually sell 1,000 CDs. Then you actually make a chance to come into the charts. If you come into the charts, doesn't matter how much it means. Nevertheless, you come into the charts. That means like, oh, you're important because you're selling. You know what I mean?
I think that music is going to go in a way more personal place. Imagine getting to see bands like yourself in a more intimate situation by playing a show live from your studio and then having a live question and answer happening right there, like the kind of meet and greet you do, but with the whole world just sitting there answering questions and to your super fans and stuff. Like, fuck, man, I think that this is more efficient, easier, and better for the times, actually. Artists, when they create that shift, are going to make more money than they ever have. I want to talk about your Dingwall bass. Sheldon, wonderful friend of mine. He's a very special human being and a bass architect. Tell me how this came to be, like how you met him and how you winded up with this amazing bass.
I remember the first time I saw a Dingwall bass was actually back in somewhere in the mid-90s. One of the very first like big music stores, like just like you have like the Guitar Center in the USA. We didn't used to have those kind of stores in Europe. It was all like just a small store that maybe had like 20 guitars. That's about it. I was looking for a 6-string bass back in those days. Somebody told me like, oh man, you should check out those basses with the fan frets because they sound amazing. But simply looking at it hanging there on the wall, I kind of got like almost seasick looking at the fan frets. I mean, what's the whole point of the fan frets? I didn't understand the thing, so I skipped it. That must have been like almost 10 years later. I bumped into this Dutch band called My Favorite Scar. Those guys were making like this real dark heavy rock, and their bass player was actually playing on a 4-string Super J bass. And I was looking like, hey, wow, that's like a Fender jazz bass, but with 10 frets. And so like, I've seen that before. Is that like a Dingwall bass? He said, yeah, exactly. I remember those basses. And I was really amazed by the sound of this bass player because he was using this crazy low tuning. And at the same time, he had such a clear, but really cool growling kind of a bass sound. And I was like, that's the sound I've been looking for like for ages. What I did was like, I went to the website. I just sent him an email like, I'm so blown away by that bass. I want a Super J. Can you build me one? I said, okay, yeah, sure, I can build you one, but it's going to take quite some time. I said, whatever, I don't care. And I said, sorry, we can give you an endorsement. I said, I don't care, man. I don't want an endorsement. I'm endorsing you guys. I'll pay for it. That's the sound I'm looking for. I want a Super J bass. I've been working with Sheldon now for, I guess, 8 years or something like that. That's also one of the things that I experienced. The first time I had a Dingwall on stage, I heard overtones that I'd never heard before because of the scale.
It's a very super clear, hi-fi sounding instrument. Because of those mini frets too, you could get the action so low that with no buzzing, and you're just like ripping away and you hardly have to touch, and you can actually play with a lighter touch and get a heavier sound. That's the one thing I found about those Dingwalls.
When I'm on stage, I do beat the shit out of my bass because I'm a pretty aggressive player, and on stage I use pretty thick strings and the action is always pretty high, but that's pure my style when I play on stage, and that works really well. I'm used to that. But when I play in the studio, I always lower the action. I also use lighter strings, and that works better for the mix anyway. So the sound is such a difference compared to what I was used to before that. This is next level, man.
So that's interesting what you said. So you play with heavier strings live and a higher action, so you could just really go in there and brutally dig into the things. And then in the studio, probably because you're also getting to sit down more while you're playing and recording, it's more comfortable to have a lighter string and just be more precise and more focused on the recording, right?
Yeah, but still I play very aggressive. But what I do to compensate that is, for instance, like thinner picks, lighter strings, just to the edge that it doesn't sound or extra noises or buzzing or whatever. But you have to find a little bit of a balance in between, because you really have to focus on intonation, especially with the music that we make. If you work with orchestras, there's something you really have to be so accurate if it comes to intonation. And I know so many bass players, especially metal bass players, when they play aggressive, they always bend the string, so their intonation is fucked up. This is one of the tricks that I actually use when I'm in the studio.
Well, you know, I've always liked a higher action bass for some of the basses. What happens is you have no choice but to just dig in, and you kind of get a deeper, fatter tone because you can go in so hard, you know, with a 4-finger kind of yank if you want to get as much meat out of that tone and the bigger string, you know. That's really cool, dude.
When I hear my recordings back, I want to hear that I'm actually working. I really want to hear that aggressive tone. I really want to hear that I'm actually playing like I'm almost like it's my last show ever.
You can only really do that with a bass that's got higher action. There is no way that you can play like it's the last show when you got super light action with small strings. Your fucking thing's going to fret out, and it's going to be like your car just hit the ground with no shocks on it. What are some other things that you love doing besides playing bass?
Next to being a musician, I still collect records. One of my biggest hobbies is, of course, collecting Hellboy collector's items, but also comics, artwork, original artwork, by the way. Cooking is one of my biggest passions, of course. I like to go to the movies. I'm a big movie nerd as well. I'm never bored, man.
Everybody I've talked to, I did an interview with Billy Sheehan and I did an interview with Rhonda Smith, and both of them basically said how much they love cooking.
Yeah.
To me, cooking is very much like music arranging. It's like picking the right strings, picking the right action, getting the right sound, what's the right pedal. And I think musicians, especially guys who know how to arrange and write and look beyond their instrument, will become the perfect cooks, because it's like a full album mix within one plate, you know, by the time you're done.
You have to do it with love, because if you do it with love, it will taste like shit.
Exactly. What can you tell us about what's going on with Epica right now? Is there, besides the stuff that you can't tell me?
We all live apart from each other. Like I said, few of us live in Holland. Our singer Simone, she lives in Stuttgart, which is southern Germany. Our other guitar player Isaac, he lives in Belgium. Mark, our other guitar player, he lives in Sicily. So we're all over the place. Each and every week we have this Skype meeting. You know, we tell what we're doing or what we're working on. So we still communicate a lot with each other. So that's good. Recently we finished our record. All the recordings are done. The mixing is done. The mastering is done.
Oh, amazing.
Of course, right now we're basically waiting to get back on stage, of course. But we also been working on some new music videos this year. Things are going to be pretty interesting regarding releases and stuff like that. So just keep your eyes open.
To all you Epica fans out there, You heard it right from the bass player's mouth over there, some inside scoop. What's the best place for people to check out all that is Rob van der Loo right now?
Just go to Instagram, drop me a line if you have questions. If you want to share something with me or whatever, you can always get in touch with me on Instagram. Go to Epica on Facebook and on Instagram. See what we're doing, because we'll be posting their stuff daily anyway.
I want to thank you so much for this quality time and fun interview with you. You are truly a character of your own design. I've always wanted to hang out with a Viking, and I've now gotten to do such.
We come back to Canada again and to Montreal, then we're hanging out anyway.
Right on, bro. So guys, you have been checking out the man, Rob van der Loo, right here on Bass Musician Magazine. You got all the information you need on how to trip out with Epica and this man right here. Check out Rob for this month of August. He is the front cover of Bass Musician Magazine, and he's kicking ass. Thank you so much for being with us today. I wish you guys the best.